Good afternoon, good morning, good evening, wherever you might be in the world. We're awaiting James. He said he was going to turn up. I don't know where he is, but we shall no doubt get an update very soon from him. But until we arrive, hello, Louis, Boris Trump, and Ian. How are we, gentlemen? How is your part of the world and your part of the lockdown?
Pretty much the same as last week for me. Not a lot has changed this week, if I'm honest. We're now into the, hunkering down, carrying on. I've tried to exercise my right to have a bit of exercise this week, a bit more than I have in the last 3. I barely left the house for 3 weeks, if I'm honest, mostly because of work and things like that. But I have been doing a bit more exercise. But other than that, I think we're into the long run now. It doesn't look like it's going to change anytime soon. So it's just continue as we are. The irony of this is we've had some of the best flying weather we've ever had in Wales.
Oh dear.
It's been amazing. It's been unbelievable. We had a week with no wind, and I can't remember the last year that I would have had a full week without wind. And it's been incredible.
Yeah.
Just change your diet, you'll be right.
I need to. Yeah, it's that pack of biscuits I've been eating all day. But it's just carrying on. That's all we can do now. That's all we can do.
It's the same here, and we're about 2 days from a total shutdown of the country because they are going to shut down the all in and out airports and everything because of the Easter, so to prevent people from traveling. So they're shutting down the country during the Easter time. So it's a bit more. We already have government mandated justifications to go anywhere, and that and the dog rentals are already in place here, so I can borrow my. Yeah, you don't know that? It was made very famous in Spain because there was a business done on Craigslist or whatever the equivalent was, that people would rent the dog for you to go out for a walk because it was allowed by their confinement.
I see. Oh, there we are. The designated survivor in a dimly lit room, because that's what it's always like in times of emergency.
Somebody mop that man's brow. He looks like he needs it.
Yeah, I suspect there'll be some form of alcoholic antiseptic very close by. Yeah. Oh.
Okay, yeah, you got me. There is a bottle of wine there.
I hope that was a certified N mask, James. Otherwise, you're going to die any minute.
Yeah.
Actually, I found it in the trash bin next to the hospital. But,
next to the hospital, yeah.
Clean, so yeah, I should be right.
Where you get your needles from, yeah.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. Okay, after that comment the other week about me being a homeless guy, I've still not forgiven you for that, Gary.
I think we can do better than that. Thank you very much. Right. That's opened the door for us there. Well done there, James. Very good. All right. Well, we've had a very slight roundup of coronavirus around the world. Oh, they're demonetized it again. But what have we seen in the drone world then? What do we know? What particularly interesting things have happened this week?
Oh, I think that the most interesting thing was that rumor that well-known news rag of the internet called Suez News published about the DJI pulling out the drone business, or at least starting at US.
One might say going to do business in places with a more open environment, more friendly and loving, caring and sharing environment. But yeah, I mean, it's been kicking around. North Korea, yeah. It's been kicking around for 2 weeks, I think now, this concept or idea in the rumour-osphere. And I think what it'll probably be is nothing more than a company reshuffle, as everybody is going to have to do a company reshuffle. I don't know. Oh, it's very nice.
It is interesting. Obviously there was this article that was posted which seemed to put a lot of info out there about dealers and stuff. And look, it's the way I could see this is it sounds like there's been some changes. Is that particularly anything unusual? I don't know. The thing to understand is China are 3 months ahead of the rest of the world with regards to where they are in human malware. It's reasonable to think that out the other side of it, changes are going to be made in all countries, including the UK. You know, we got businesses folding left, right, and centre. Is this anything more, as Gary said, than a change? I don't ever think they'd pull out of the US. I think they would. Perhaps they might take a different view on it, and I don't know. It's just my opinion with the way the new regulation is and the way you have to be certified by the FAA. And I'd certainly be nervous if I was any non-US based company, and that's not DJI specific. That's even Parrot and Autel. You know, we have to remember Autel are Chinese based. You know, yes, they have an American arm, but you know, this whole NPRM has some very strict requirements around aircraft being certified, and the FAA will have to certify every single aircraft if this goes through. And I can imagine foreign non-US domestic companies being a little bit weary of that, and perhaps that's a result of how they're going to restructure things to either make that easier for themselves or whatever. But I don't know. I don't ever see them pulling out the US. I think if anything, they'd restructure and change the way they do things. It's always worth remembering that enterprise products are only available through dealers. As far as I'm aware, that's not changing, but it's not unrealistic to think that could change at some point. You know, how long do they want to keep that up? At the end of the day, drone sales have to be on the floor right now. They have to be totally on the floor.
Come on, Ian. Are you seeing $15,000 M210 being sold on Amazon with the liberal replacement policies of Amazon?
But the S1000 was available on Amazon. The S900 was. All of the big gear in the past was, you know.
No, but those were cheap. Come on.
They weren't that cheap.
Yeah.
M600 used to be able to buy directly from DJI before it became an enterprise product. Now that it's enterprise, I don't think you can. But before it was an enterprise product, you could. I don't know. You know, that's purely speculation on my half. You know,
Intel's left the enterprise space.
They have.
So why wouldn't DJI? And that's a wonderful. The non-disclaimers that the Intel people are on are quite amazing, and they are terrified of them. But Patrick put it out there this last week. I knew about it about 3 weeks, 3 weeks ago. But the Intel guys, my word, they have NDAs for their people, and they have to go on courses to not talk to the press. So, but it is the truth. They've got out of it. They've got out of the enterprise business. So maybe it's not all that. Maybe it's not as huge as they say.
I think the bigger story is if you take DJI out, there is no one else realistic here. And
well, yeah.
You know, as a turnkey solution, before I get a kicking from Philip and Nardra Pilot community and everyone else, I'm simply talking about turnkey solutions here. From that point of view, there is no one to compete with DJI at all at the moment, realistically. You know. Go on then, Louis, kick me.
No. You're absolutely correct. Come on. My company uses DJI products because you can buy them.
Yeah.
And out of the box, they perform well out of the box for some time. But that's another topic.
But it's more perfect than everything else that's imperfect, and that's the rule I've always said, isn't it? Nothing is perfect, and that's the reality of this stuff. You know.
The thing with DJI products is they actually make them like proper products. You know, they're not made sort of on a one-by-one basis. With most other drones, they come out of the factory, and every single one that comes out of the factory is different. With a DJI drone, it's almost identical every single time, and they've got the proper lean manufacturing going on and all the rest of it. So, and I see Louis quite agree with that. But I think they're enormous products than anyone else.
I would agree with you. Most of it. Yeah. Except when you get those crazy issues with M210s and the batteries and the falling drones from the sky, that you take a drone up and you'll never know how fast it will come down. But yeah, besides that, and DJI doesn't say a thing about that. Yeah, but yeah, mostly, come on, it's the best. It's the best. Come on, if you go to an Alta or something like that, it's not easy to get one of these drones, and it's really easy to go to somewhere in the world and get a DJI locally, and that is a huge advantage, especially now with these all these crazy restrictions of batteries on airplanes and the 100 watts restriction. Come on, going to say India and getting batteries for an M210, it's much easier than getting to I don't know, let's say I'm in Portugal going to UK and trying to buy 22,000 milliamp hours Tatu batteries in UK on a short notice. It's almost impossible.
Yeah, it's impossible. Yeah, it is. It is. Look, my belief in this whole thing is clearly something is changing. There's a bit of noise that something is changing. So people seem to be, a couple of people are leaving. Is it any more than what will happen with other companies as a result of coronavirus? I don't know. I don't think they'll leave the US. I think that's probably a bit extreme. I think the years of that constant growth have to be on the other side of that curve now. You know, the big last one was the Mavic, which was that massive change, and everyone bought the Mavic from the Phantoms and everyone loved it. Then you had the Mavic Air. I think they're probably on the other side of that curve where everyone's rushing out to buy the latest drone, and it's the same as that iPhone curve as well. Apple hit it, everyone hit it at some point, so they're probably now going, do we now consolidate things a little bit rather than keep on the push? And the reality is, who's going to have money to spend in the next 6 months? I'm not. That's for sure.
Wouldn't you go to less regulated sort of markets, if you will, and sit back and watch what happens with the FAA certification of stuff? Wouldn't you just wait and see? Why waste too much effort in that?
Yeah.
Would you get stuck in while you can, before those regulations come in? Would you make a giant push just to sell everything you can in the meantime and then step back?
Well, there's big sales on Mavics and stuff and things at the moment.
There's a sale in Europe. It hasn't fully hit the US, but there are deals in dealers and deals in websites that you can get in the US. You've got to look for them, but they are there. The problem is, whatever they do, it doesn't make a difference. Autel can't ship a product right now. Literally, they just can't get it out the door. Skydio have had to shut production down because of the result of having it manufactured in the US. You know, unfortunately, they're now suffering as a result of actually being US based because of the human malware situation. So even if they pulled out 80%, they'd still have more than anyone else anyway. So now I think personally think it's the natural things that change. Something's clearly happening, but who knows what.
I'm just putting a link that James has posted into an InterGeo thing about delivery drones, and I see you're trying to stand something up for that there, James. I had a very interesting telephone call today. Well, right, to where have I come from? The 1700s. I had a very interesting online chat with a friend of mine who called me from the UK today, a helicopter driver, and fleets of helicopters have been signed up to do major large-scale deliveries over there, and they're just ready for the go. So that's quite interesting, I thought. And that speaks to delivery drones. Over to you, James.
Yeah, so I got sent this by James Kavanagh today from RICS, Royal Institute for Chartered Surveyors. And there's a press briefing tomorrow at 7 p.m. CEST time. So I don't know what that time that is in UK time. I presume that's the same as UK time.
It's plus an hour, I think, isn't it?
Is it plus an hour? Okay, yeah. So that would be 6 o'clock UK time. So there's going to be some speakers about how drones can be used to fight the pandemic. I've seen a lot of stuff out there. I think there's a lot of noise. There's a lot of I suppose jumping on the bandwagon. But I think there are some use cases where drones can be used, and I've heard some really interesting ones. So there's a few out there. So remote inspections and surveillance and things like this. So putting them in hotspot locations to prevent police officers and also from security from having to go and protect sort of I suppose high risk sites. I know that the police have been using them in the hills up north, and I think in Cornwall sort of area. Was it Cornwall or was it Peak District? I can't remember, but so I think they need to be careful about where they use them and sort of use them in actual areas where there are people doing stupid things, like either breaking the law by breaking into properties, or where you do have like large groups of people gathering around. I think that's a reasonable one. But I think the delivery use case is actually getting quite close now. So I've been sort of I suppose doing a safety case on the back of an envelope type exercise, and I think that this is doable within controlled airspace, within transponder mandatory zones, where you could liaise with an airport, an aerodrome, or where conspicuity is mandated. I think you need to balance the right components of the safety case together, but I think it's doable. I actually think it's doable to for small items. We're not talking kilos worth of payload. We're talking maybe 100 grams worth of payload, but things like tests and things like that, taking them from hospitals or from GP surgeries to test locations quickly to be able to diagnose people, maybe free up beds and things like this.
Oh, come on.
Now that we got the proof that it's not needed in big cities.
No, it's not needed because now you have no traffic on the streets. So even a runner can go from an hospital to...
And what's better than flying overhead with a vial full of virus over people's houses? Yes,
and full of propellers spreading out the virus evenly.
I know you don't want to put it like this, James, but I really think this is proving that there's no need for this sort of thing at the moment.
I don't think that's true.
I think where you have good roads and infrastructure, you don't need it. You don't need it in Europe, but here in Africa, where there's no infrastructure, yes, we do need it. We do need it. Where there's no road, you need it.
So we should take every time we've got a test sample, we take a test sample of someone to see if they've been infected. We have to drive a van, 15 minutes down the corner.
We'll take 100 in that van.
They have test kits.
Are empty.
How long do you have to wait to be able to collect up 100 samples? Do you do a run at the end of each day where actually time's critical, or do you send it one by one as and when they're needed?
Why do you have to send them anywhere? Because they have the test kits all around the place. Anyway, trebuchet is the future.
Sorry, James, you've come and we've come. It's almost like we've come to ambush you. But I'm very much a believer. So I'm very much a believer that a drone, sometimes you have a drone and you see it like it's like a hammer and you're walking around seeing nails everywhere. But I don't think that's the case. But there are a small number of use cases where I think drones do offer advantages. Even if they're only slim advantages, those advantages will increase over time once the technology becomes more and more mature. So. I think. Sure. Anyway, sorry.
I think anything that can be done, say for example, the Excel Centre, where you've got a brand new hospital without any of the resources that a normal hospital would have. It's just got basically a bunch of beds and a morgue at the end of it. There's going to be a lot of facilities that may be needed and medication, things that might need to get into that hospital at short notice because they're not properly equipped with everything. You've also got the situation where next door you've got the airport, and obviously this brings some problems, but if managed correctly, getting things from the aircraft across to the hospital in a short amount of time is actually quite tricky, because you have to go and get it out of the hospital onto the roads, then along to the Excel, then back into the Excel premises, which is it'd probably take you, somewhere between 5 and 10 times as long. So I think it's really for those really critical cases where you need to get something from A to B fast because someone's life is dependent on it. Then
Sure.
I see a use case there. Everything else is kind of a nice to have or not beneficial. So
surely when we're at that point, though, that's like you might as well deem it an ambulance, and that airspace shouldn't be an issue because that airliner or whatever should get out of the way. The airline is just another bus on the road, and that's where we should be at, and that should apply to all, as Boo was saying, all be they helicopters, aircraft, drones, all aircraft that are on a true emergency case. Well, everything can get out of the way. Sure.
Exactly.
Come on. What we've seen so far on these small volume, small weight deliveries was that Swiss company that was operating test flights in Zurich, and they had to cancel because the amount of technology to make that point-to-point delivery work reliably is staggering. So, and even them with huge amounts of resources had to call it quits after even losing a few drones due to incidents. Now imagine that you're loading a pathogen on a drone and the drone crashes somewhere. It's so risky and the technology is not there. Sorry. It can be done, yes, has been done, but not at a reasonable price point. It's not at the current price point of a Mavic Mini or a Mavic whatever small Mavic is. It's quite more expensive. So in the end of the day, it's cheaper to just get a biker or a motorcycle guy and go and deliver the things. It's just a matter of practicality.
I think it's definitely time to address airspace usage and modern airspace, that modern digital sky, and how should we do it? Perhaps, as Drone Racers quite correctly said, we don't have time to set up anything fancy during an emergency, which is probably about right. But we should definitely be thinking now, while it's absolutely top of mind, at how airspace and how it could be done.
No, I completely agree with that philosophy. Is that there isn't time to set up anything fancy, and actually, it doesn't have to be fancy. You look. I can't remember the other guy who comes on here and does his legal BVLOS flights. He's already doing BVLOS. This stuff isn't hard to do. It's just putting the case together and some of the
any commercial business that tells you they always fly within VLOS and make money is lying. They're absolutely lying. Every man and his dog flies. Oh, of course, Louis doesn't. Of course, yeah. Every man and his dog flies.
Nicola will be so pleased to know that everyone's remembered his name.
Yeah.
Come on, Nicola. Come on. He also has one vial full of Ebola spreading down the mountain on a white foamy plane. So that has already generated 3 generations of viruses there. Now, come on, it's not there. It's not there. The technology. It's so hard to get. What are you going to do? Get containers full of RC with FPV glasses guys flying all around? It's not feasible.
No, of course not.
Look how hard it is to mount a safety case for a drone that doesn't have a virus on it. So imagine once you put a virus on it, the safety case, CIA would say, no, not having that.
I'm not necessarily saying put a virus on it, but potentially some medication. There's you have to look at the specific use case, and it's not going to be a one-stop shop for transporting everything around for the NHS. It's not going to be able to do that. But what it will do is it will provide some links that may, even if it saves one person's life, it was worth doing. So I think what you have to look at is, first of all, keep it simple, stupid. Why can't you literally sellotape something onto the back of a Mavic? And I know I wouldn't advise doing that, but to that kind of extent, a Mavic can do 5 kilometers. You know, that can provide some kind of capability. If you have the right equipment, you can set up.
Let me get the measuring tape, and you'll show me the 5 kilometers. Come on, be real. You can.
James,
I think
we've got to be a bit kinder to James here.
Now, the thing is, come on, I'm all for the automation, but we got to be realistic. And even the best solutions these days require quite an infrastructure. Look, I think it was Matternet. Help me out, Gary. It was Matternet that was operating in Zurich. And the amount of technology they have on those drones is staggering. They were unmanned, they were automated, but what's the counterpart? Have a fleet of guys sitting in a room with remotes and flying with FPV glasses.
So I remember back about 3 years ago when some of the top surveyors in the industry said you could never achieve 5 millimeters from a drone survey, and then we proved them wrong. And I think that we could do the same with BVLOS. I don't think.
What do you want to prove with BVLOS? I'm not quite with you.
Just that it's possible in today's age. It's actually doable in terms of getting.
It is very possible. Very possible.
Doing it legally and not within segregated airspace. So I'm already working on 2 projects which are BVLOS projects, using the sort of what I would call the shrouded operation, where you're flying close to properties, so you're not actually within any airspace that aircraft could be. But then the other type of operation that you could do it in is areas where you know where other aircraft are, so you can mitigate that way. And so any kind of controlled airspace or areas where there's transponders are mandated, you can mitigate that by having connections to the right things. You know, if you have contact with the airport, or you have connections to electronic conspicuity receivers, you can see stuff. And so you've then got a forward-facing camera, which the pilot is able to see. So as a collision avoidance mechanism, I know it's very crude and basic, but in terms of fulfilling the requirement of non-cooperative collision avoidance, which is what the CAO want to see, then that seems doable. And then in terms of tactical and strategic, strategic is you file your flight plan. Air traffic control will basically tell anyone flying within that area not to fly below 700 feet. And then in terms of tactical, you've then got electronic conspicuity to then detect where those aircraft are. So I think if you look at all of those components, you fulfill the CAA requirements needs. In terms of ground risk, if you fall out of the sky, you might fall on top of someone, but that's why parachutes were invented. And if you pre-plan the route, if you've got a route going between 2 buildings, which is repeatable, you can mitigate risk by sending it along a certain path that is de-risking the operation. So if you look at the whole safety case, actually you can mitigate in every single part of it. I think just no one's done it yet, and because no one's done it doesn't mean it's not possible.
No, I agree. So then are you aiming now to set up those corridors, if you will, between that Excel Centre, which somebody in the comments said is only a 5-minute drive or something? Jonathan said, no, not Jonathan, it was someone further up said it's only a 5-minute, Richard, 5-minute drive from Excel to London City. I don't know, I've never been to there. But so are you is your idea in your head is to set up these corridors and to prove to CAA that, this is how we do it, come on, give us a go?
So we're working with is it King's College London, who the NHS department within there. So we're not actually going to look at the use cases ourselves. We're kind of focused on the technical solution, and then leaving the experts to tell us where it is needed and where it can be most effective. So that's really their job. Our job is to make it work. So it's a hard challenge, but unless you try, the industry is just going to stay where it is. Someone has to crack this, and if that's if it's always going to start off on a niche use case, but where you've got potentially lives being saved, then from a safety case perspective, there's the impetus from the CAA to want to make that happen. So yeah, even if it's doesn't work perfectly, and we're going to start connecting every single hospital up, and start delivering everything by drone. Even if it can only play a small role, then hopefully that will evolve over time into a larger role, and we can start seeing that BVLOS use case develop. But yeah, I think I've written loads of safety cases now, and I think based on sort of rough calcs, I think it's possible that we can get that through. It's just going to have to require a little bit of work from the CAA to be able to accelerate the process, because it does take sort of 6 to 8 weeks at least to go and get it even looked at. So by that point, we're probably going to be out of things.
But all of this has been in place before. This has all been in place before, though, because we've, if what you're basically saying is it's going to be safer to fly BVLOS in controlled airspace, because you know where everything is. But by the same token, you're relying on people to follow the instructions of air traffic control, not to deviate from the published flight plans. But we've already got a situation where if you're flying out in Class G airspace, as long as you're under 400 feet and you're away from airports and helipads, again, you should be totally safe. So nothing's changed. We have mitigation in place. Mitigation's relying on manned aviation to follow the rules, just as you'll be doing in your controlled airspace. If we can't rely on it now in uncontrolled airspace for BVLOS, we can't rely on it in controlled airspace. So nothing's changed there. And as for saving lives, remember, every drone operation that replaces a manned operation is effectively saving a life, potentially saving a life, because if you don't hoist people thousands of feet into the air, you don't put their lives in jeopardy. So both factors, saving lives and mitigating the risks involved in operating in airspace where there could be aircraft, they're both being addressed at the moment, but we still don't have this BVLOS approval coming on at the right pace. So nothing you've presented has changed the picture. So we should be just saying, well, who cares? Just push it anyway.
Yeah, we have to. I'm not sure the CAA will buy that one, but
it's our job to make them buy it.
Exactly, and it's I think you have to mold it into the format that the CAA want to see, and having, like you said, doesn't mean that anyone will follow the rules. Well, your response to that has got to be, well, we've got a forward-facing camera, high-definition video. So if something is uncooperative and it does stray into the airspace, doesn't follow the rules, it's not picked up by electronic conspicuity, it goes through all of those safety barriers, then you've still got the camera there to be able to help mitigate.
My response is, what happens when you have a plane coming up from behind at 200 knots?
Well, you're only weighing 1 kilo, so the chances are that you're not gonna actually damage it too much.
Well, there you go. So those apply now. That applies now. If an aircraft hits the drone, the chances are that it's not going to damage the aircraft to the point where there is lives put at risk. So nothing changes. It's exactly the same scenario we're facing now.
Yeah, no, I agree. It's just you've got to have so many different safety barriers in there for the CAA to be able to say, yeah, we're happy with that. And I can't tell you what the CAA will do with it, but I think if they see that you've thought about it carefully and you've kind of got 3 or 4 layers worth of air risk mitigations in there, I think they'll look at it credibly. If you're just going to say, okay, well, we're just going to fly and see what happens, then they're not going to look at it credibly and they'll just strike it off straight away. So I think you do need to play, toe the line a bit with them. But
my point is, from CAA's perspective, nothing has changed. So why would they change their perspective? Why would they change their point of view? There's no extra factors involved here. All these factors already exist. You're trying to present a case where nothing has changed. So why would they change their response?
So they're not. The CAA have already said that the only way they would accept a BVLOS application is if everything could be seen, basically.
It's great to see Alex in the comments. He's mentioning, so I was trying to mention Iris Automation, and they've got their 360-degree camera, and that is signed off here in South Africa for BVLOS flights out to 15 kilometers. That's signed out, done. You can fly. If you have that fitted, you can fly to 15 kilometers here, tickety-boo, carry on. So it's all...
all the pieces are there.
No, that's the issue. Come on. Look at what Matternet has done flying in Zurich exactly to that, hospital supplies and things. Yes, it is possible. At what cost? And what are the real gains of it? Even Matternet, that is at the top, in my opinion, is at the top of the development of these BVLOS solutions regarding with drones and systems usable by normal people instead of people like us, hackers and tinkerers. And they are stopped because they have issues with the system. So it's quite amazing that we don't. I believe we must learn with other people's mistakes and triumphs. And Matternet is a good case to look at and ask them directly what went wrong, what's working, what's not working. I'm sure Matternet. And if I was a regulator, I would immediately go to Matternet and ask them, why did you fail? Or more likely, CAA would go to the Swiss flight authorities and ask them what happened to Matternet.
Because they try. I think the problem is they try to overcomplicate it. Keep it simple. Keep it super simple. Get it so you can spend £1,000 a drone and you can now do drone deliveries with a bit of software. Now suddenly that business model, you're paying for. Sorry.
Do you really think we'll get to that point? $1,000 for something that can do something which is pretty jolly complicated? That system, the Irish automation system, that's $2,500 there straight away.
Do you need that? Do you need that? This is the thing: is you basically have to design a thing to have the absolute minimum what you require to get through the safety case.
Okay.
And so, you have to start from the safety case. Like that should be the starting point for any BVLOS operation. If you start with the aircraft, you're always going to spend an absolute ton of money. Start with the safety case, work out what it is you need to do, and then work backwards from that. And you'll have a successful operation. And that's my philosophy anyway. And I think it's the right philosophy because it basically gives you a textbook on what the requirements that you have to meet. If you basically say, okay, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to use an aircraft which has this capability, and this capability. You put it through. The CSA, okay, we're happy with that. Show us what you've got. You show it all. Then you can put it all together and say, here we go. This is what we have. Will you improve that? But that's my approach, and I'm sure there's going to be a lot of people who probably won't buy into that. But someone has to get it. Someone has to do it eventually and find a use case that works. And I think if you keep the costs down, you go for the real the use cases that have the highest value, then that's where you'll break into it. And what's the cost of a human life? Well, it's worth hundreds of thousands of pounds just to save someone's life. So if you can pick a use case which does that, and actually, you're using medical experts who understand where the problems lie within the industry and where the pinch points are going to be, and you target those specific areas. You keep the solution cheap, and keep it simple really, because flying a Mavic, anyone could. If you wanted to fly a package 5 kilometers away with your Mavic, I'm sure most of us here could work out how to do. Could do something like that. Now, obviously, that needs to be modified in a way, and we're working with a software provider who basically has you push the button, it will automatically take off, it will follow the route, and then it'll automatically land at the location, and it'll do precision landings as well. So you basically put targets out, and that's using DJI drones. So it's definitely doable. You then just need to connect in some conspicuity into that, and you and I know that there are systems out there that will be able to provide that kind of intelligence. Amalgamate those two things together, and suddenly you've got a pilot stood on the rooftop. He gets a package, he attaches it to a drone, a 3D printed, contraption sat on the back of a drone. You push it in. And then you press go, and the thing flies the route and lands. And keep it as simple as that. Really simple, really using existing off-the-shelf technology, and prove to the CIA that from a safety case perspective, you meet all of their requirements. And I think you've got something that can work. But I'm not saying it's easy. But if it was easy, it wouldn't be fun, would it?
Yeah. The privacy advocate's asking what's the Irish automation system. I think it's the Irish. It's I'll get a press release. That's what it is. That's what you mean? If that's what you're referring to, hang on. We posted that this week on a popular, well-known local drone news website. But it's very good. Is it not? Is not really the answer to this that hospitals and places where these things are happening should be properly equipped and everything should be on site? And as Boris Trump was mentioning earlier, if well, the perfect timing there. The testing should be on site. Are we not looking at the? Oh yes, cake. Well, that's not on. That's not on in many ways.
I'm doing it hard in lockdown. I got to tell you, I've got a wife. Got a wife that's the best cook in the world, and I've got stacks of coffee, and I probably put on about 50 kilos by the time this is over. But it's all good.
Yeah, well, I've got Guinness.
Do you know it's illegal to be caught with alcohol in your car here now. Wouldn't be able to buy those chocolate. That's two items. That's two items I wouldn't be able to buy here now under lockdown: chocolate biscuits and Guinness. And
it's got to be demonetized, that isn't it? Drinking beer.
Chocolate biscuits.
Does it have to be open for you to get prosecuted, or is closed beer?
No, closed beer. No closed alcohol. Any alcohol.
So they've banned essentials as well.
Well, there you go, Gary. You can set up your own beer delivery using drones.
So there's the two things you weren't here last week. The two things they're doing: if they find your bottle store open or your bar open, you're charged with attempted murder. And now they've started destroying your stock as well. So they charge you with attempted murder and destroy your stock. So you wouldn't want to be doing. Oh, Louis.
Look, it reminds me of the Turnigy multi-rotor challenge from many years ago. Remember that?
Exactly. Yeah. What a fantastic heavy lift challenge. Do they not do that anymore?
Gary, how many crates of free Guinness can I expect? How many people are watching this channel right now for this shameless promotion of their products? One or two?
Link in the description.
You might get like, I don't know, Guinness for that. You might do. But James, so for this low cost delivery BV loss solution, then whatever it's delivering, because it's lightweight. So what are we saying? It's a sub 7 kilo aircraft, so it's not going to be lifting much. It's got to be a super high life-saving value thing.
Yeah. So essentially, there's we're kind of platform agnostic. So the software that we're using and the technology partner we're working with can basically accept any DJI aircraft. So it taps into the DJI SDK, so it can turn stuff off and on as and when's needed and trigger servos and all the rest of it. So they're very much within that. And then they've got some basically what you call an accurate landing system. I can't really go into the details of how that works because I'd probably be breaking some kind of contract somewhere. But yeah, basically it will be able to automatically land in a very accurate way. In a particular location, and it can turn off the automatic return to home. So say if it was landing on a rooftop and it lost comms during the landing at that specific point, then it wouldn't just decide to then fly back the 10-kilometer route again. So they can turn that off. So we've thought about sort of all of the potential quirks with it, but you can fit these things with parachutes. There are off-the-shelf parachutes, and I know some of them aren't particularly reliable, as you well know, Gary, but use something that's reasonably reliable. And these machines don't often fall out of the sky. They will if you operate, like the M210 will fall out of the sky if you haven't updated the firmware in batteries, or you are flying in heavy rain or something like that. But as long as you know their weak points and you mitigate for those, you're generally pretty reliable. And so, yeah, I think it's a doable one, and really the drive is going to come from the client side. I always say start with the client need, and we've got people who are focused on that to find where the pinch points are. And so, we'll focus on those pinch points where say for instance they run out of something last minute and they need to go and get something there quickly. they're the kind of situations which are critical. And say, for instance, when people have their tests to come out of the beds, for example, they'll have their test, they'll need it to go and get validated in the labs. There's actually only a few centralized locations where these tests get validated, because they have to have all the special equipment to do it. And so if someone's in a bed and they get tested, then the quicker you can get them out of the bed and get someone else in it, then the better. So we'll see what the use cases throw up. I'm not an expert in medical use cases, so I'm not going to try and pretend to be, but I'm fairly certain that there are some use cases out there. So we'll let the experts find or tell us what those are, and then we deliver the solution.
Can I try? Can I throw you another stone, James?
I would say no, but I think you're going to anyway.
No. I'm just asking for permission to throw you another stone on that specific use case.
Sorry, say again. You'd like to?
I'm just asking if I can throw another stone to that last use case you mentioned.
Of course, yeah. Go for it.
Okay, you know that the best case scenario of the results of those results are 4 hours. So why do a drone delivery if then the results take 4 hours?
Because the problem comes is if you've got a hospital which is doing 5 tests an hour, for example, then how often do you send a vehicle? Do you send a vehicle after every test? Do you send it after every 5 tests? Do you send it after every 20 tests? If you've got an easy way to do it and send it by drone, where you don't have to have 20 delivery drivers going backwards and forwards, on mopeds or vans, that seems more effective to have 20 Mavics up on the roof and doing it like that. So I think it's really about the timeliness and the fact that you can, as soon as the test's done, send it there straight away and not have to wait for a batch of them to collect up before you then take them across. That's my thinking. And as well, in a smaller, say, small GP surgeries, for example, actually having someone in a car or a van to then, take the test samples would. I'm not going to get in. I don't want to get too deep into the use cases because I'm not an expert.
No, I was just asking because come on, even these coronavirus test results take 4 hours, so I don't see a problem. I don't see a problem in waiting 1 hour to fill up a van with tests. Sorry, I'm just throwing stones at the idea.
It's not like the patients are going anywhere.
You're quite right. I tend to stick to my area of expertise, which is in the drone side of things. So, we've got an expert in the medical field who will understand that side of things. So I'd leave that to them because they know what they're doing. I don't really want to get into that side of it because I don't really know what I'm talking about. So I'd rather.
It doesn't stop other people. Look, did you know that this is caused by 5G? It's out there on the internet.
Oh my God! Yeah,
you don't have to be an expert to find these things.
Yeah, they found out that in England. So I think the English are
burned down
together with Brexit. They are on the forefront of the discoveries.
We have morons burning down 5G masts everywhere. We've had something like 15 of them now burned to the ground in the last week.
I think the morons also run normal 4G ones, so they don't distinguish because I believe the towers don't say here you have 5G, so they just burn them all.
Well, did you see that information that was going around that apparently 5G it basically will it resonates in your enamel in your teeth. So basically, what they've been saying is you have to punch your teeth out. And then that way you stop the 5G from being able to attack you.
Darwin's law kicks in at that point. So,
that's Facebook news, right?
Darwin's law, yeah. Do you remember Darwin? We need Darwin Awards for the coronavirus, actually. The people who spectacularly killed themselves, not by the virus themselves. Probably some guy climbing a pole.
Now, they're all drinking alcohol in India, aren't they? And killing over dying.
It's Don't go on the 5G thing. That really wound me up in the week. That one did. That was a real soapbox moment for me.
P.T. Barnum was right.
Yeah, I completely agree with Louis, but I do see that I still fundamentally believe you will never beat a man in a van. A cheap man in a van. Now that van might be electric in 3 or 4 years' time. So whilst we've got to take into account that, things will change, things will move on, vans are going to get the next leg up as well as cars have, and we're going to see more and more hybrid vehicles. We're going to see more electric vehicles. But I do also see a very specific market for what James is saying as well, and organ transplant is one of them. I think organ transplant is one of the big ones that I think it could.
Is that where you get your Hammond replaced by a Wurlitzer?
Yeah, it's where you should get your organ swapped over. He's a nightmare. The
point is, you have to think sort of. You do have to think at where the end goal is in all of this. And if you're in a hospital and you can literally put something in a box, you can press a few buttons, and that is on its way to another hospital. That is the end goal of what we're working towards. Now, don't get me wrong. There's probably about 20 stepping stones to get to that point, but you have to get that first stepping stone. What's that first stepping stone that gets you an advantage over what currently exists? And then you build on from that. Nothing in life is a revolution. Everything is an evolution, and every single step has to be better than the previous. And so I think you need that first step, which is it does provide an advantage. It's not necessarily going to be a huge advantage, but even if it can save 20% of 20% of a cost or 20% of time, which is in a critical situation, but adds value, then that's what you need to be able to do. In the same way, in the surveying industry, we started off with mapping, and to be honest, the use case was slim and rubbish and inaccurate, but there was a very small advantage. And that's grown to the point now where actually you can basically get the thing out of the box, press a button, and you'll get a 3D model of your area. And so it's taken time to get to that point, but we're there now, and each step has been incremental, and it's going to be the same for delivery. We have to start somewhere, and medical delivery seems like a good place because the value of getting the value of someone's life is very high, and so if you can save just one person's life, you can justify having a service there 24/7, 365 days a year if it saves one person's life per year. So that's really where we're at with it. And over time, the price will decrease, the coverage will increase, and everything will improve to the point where you are literally taking whether it's some medication or a test sample or whatever, putting it in a box, it goes up a chute onto the roof, goes into a drone, and then the drone flies to another hospital, and then suddenly it appears in someone else's box.
What about a mini Elon Musk Hyperloop? So you just have like a little thing and you put it in the wall and it goes through pipes and comes out somewhere else.
just like the cat in the supermarket, you mean? Yeah, but surely, let's say it goes really, really well, and it's all you have a thumping success. Won't Amazon just come and jump up and down on you until you are no more? Because aren't you trying to jump into exactly their marketplace?
No, because they're going hub to customer, and I've always said that hub to customer is always going to be the last one that we tick off. Hub to hub is very much going to happen before that. I say hub to hub is possible now in controlled airspace. Hub to hub in uncontrolled airspace should be doable in 2 to 3 years' time once electronic conspicuity is mandated across the country. Then hub to customer, probably going to be 5 to 7 years, because you've got so much variability in environment. Going to someone's house is, well, I'm not even yet convinced of the numbers, the business case for that one yet. Is that the right solution, or should we be going hub to hub with then an electric delivery van with robots coming out the side of the delivery van up to someone's door and poking it through the door? Is that the solution, or is drone the solution? I think drones will have a place within the hub to customer model, but I don't know whether it's going to be the complete market or whether it's just going to be a niche. I don't know yet.
I think we've been moaning at James for nearly an hour now. Poor James.
I love a good argument, me.
But don't you think, isn't this whole thing just changing the way we're thinking about stuff and the value proposition of life, saving a life, always a winner, never not going to be a winner. But for all other things, packages to your home, packages to hubs and things like that, are we surely going to discover we don't need this stuff? Do we really need to have stuff within an hour? Is that really, really, really important in life? I'm hoping
it's fundamental. Come on, Gary. The thing I ordered this morning from Amazon, I want it here and I want it now. Come on.
Okay, all right then. Fair
instant
enough.
delivery. Come on, instant satisfaction, instant delivery. Come on. Now I see James' point.
Is it worth the cost though? Is it worth the environmental, all the other costs? I mean,
James is approaching this from the right side, where costs are not so much disputable when you speak about saving human lives. That's a topic that is very hot these days with all the crazy technologies that we have and the costs of medical treatments that there are. I just don't see the technology being there at reasonable, affordable prices. Because you'll have to get a huge infrastructure, a huge hassle with Class G flights. It's not easy. But
yeah, well, I've seen some of the drone delivery projects, where they're talking about delivering pizzas and stuff like that. How many pizza deliveries can you do in a day?
No, come on, look at the video I posted here on the chat. And
okay.
Well, let's say best case you can do 60 drone pizza deliveries in a day, and let's say best case people will pay £5 per delivery. That's £300 a day.
What, £5 more than the pizza?
Sorry?
£5 only for the delivery?
Well, who's going to pay more than £5 for a pizza delivery?
Come on, you don't even pay that for a 10-kilo package from Amazon. So paying £5, it's out of the question.
Yeah, so I'm saying best case, like absolute best case. So absolute best case, you're going to get a £5. Absolute best case, you're going to get 60 drone deliveries. So you're talking about a maximum return per drone of £300 per drone per day. Well, when is that ever going to, to go and get those kinds of numbers and to make that profitable? There's a lot of work that needs to be done to be able to get to that point. So, it might happen in 15 or 20 years time potentially, but I just don't see that as don't see that as the market. That's not where the money is. That's not where the margins are. So focus on where the margins are, and then focus on them first. Do it as simply and low cost as you can. Get it through your safety case, deliver that, and build from there. But it's not going to be the first. Delivering pizza isn't going to be step one. It's not even going to be step 2 or 3 or 4.
No. Come on, that is absolutely for sure. You have to do deliveries of high value, not necessarily financial value, high value deliveries. That's where the center of the business is. But
so what you're saying is that because it's human life involved, you can gouge them. You can charge them an arm and a leg for that arm and a leg delivery.
No, you can't. No, you can't, because then you have the other competing technologies. So it's all checks and balances. Okay, I get this in 2 minutes, point to point, and costs me 100. And I get this that goes from point to the same points in 15 minutes and costs me 1/10 of the other one. So this one clearly, the cheaper one clearly wins. Yeah, it's not an easy solution. It requires some Excel jockeys to come up with the right numbers for that.
Alex makes an interesting comment about Mana. They did announce, and yes, they're wrong. And then Drone Racer said, if this was Dragon's Den, you're not winning in investors. And I like to think of Bruce really as the Deborah Meaden character of this whole thing. That's where I see Bruce.
Your beard's better than mine.
Yeah, it's better than yours. Absolutely. Yeah, it's like many. Well, the thing we must all do right now is go and buy some sort of crop spraying drone, and we must go and spray the streets, because that's how we're all going to make a fortune at the minute. Every man and his dog seems to be standing that up at the minute with absolutely no. Well, I don't know, unless maybe one of you guys knows some evidence of why it actually works.
And there's also the new business line coming up, which is drones with speakers attached, telling people, go home, go home.
Yeah, the British police love that one. They've been exercising their right to use it an awful lot over the last week. Annoying poor sunbathers and people out with their barbecues on a Sunday with their nasty drones, follow them around. Any wonder the drone industry gets bad press? Just because people are on lockdown and they shouldn't actually be leaving their homes has nothing to do with it. But
they have to get some flight time. Here there was a fireman's M600 flying over deserted beach, and the TV cameras shooting that, and the drone, go home, we're all on quarantine, but there was no one at the beach, so the guys were just for the cameras.
The police are just pervs.
It's interesting. A privacy argument was brought up in that case, and the CAA don't have any grounds on it. It has to go to the data commissioner in the UK to deal with that one. There was a video that went around this week that a guy got a bit chopsy with the PFCO or a police officer who he was out flying, and I don't agree one little bit on how he handled it. It was wrong completely. However, on the flip side of it, a man on a push bike in a field on his own is no danger to anyone, and I don't buy this argument that leaving your home is dangerous, you're putting people at risk, because if you have an accident, they've got to save you. You've got thousands of men across the UK who probably are not that proficient at DIY, who are all stuck at home with their wives with a list the length of their arm, being forced into doing those jobs they've promised they'll do for the last 5 years, but they've never had time, and now they've got no bloody escape. So there's more chance.
Wives have access to knives.
Yeah.
The wives have access to knives in the kitchen.
And there's more chance, Pete.
A great deal of detail with that, Ian. There was a great deal of detail.
No, but there's more chance of Pete, who doesn't do a lot of DIY, gets his drill out and puts it through an electric cable and electrocutes himself, than the guy riding his bike to the park having an accident. So I don't buy being out for 1 minute, but the reality is we are in lockdown, and the government have said we should not be going out unless it's for valid reasons, and really what he was doing wasn't really a valid reason. But on the flip side, I don't agree he was putting anyone in danger. But it's sorry,
I've always wanted to be under the rule of a totalitarian state anyway.
Yeah, it's who knew it would end up like this, but it wasn't the way it should have been handled.
We didn't before Christmas, did we?
Like
4 months ago.
No, no one. At the end of the day, you had a PFC or a police officer. I can't remember what the young lady was, and she was just trying to do her job. He didn't need to get arsey with it. But on the flip side, commercial operators technically can still work. At the end of the day, if your job is deemed as necessary, you can still operate today. How the CAA have put a statement out saying recreational flights shouldn't happen. And further to that, actually, Gary, now the NATs have withdrawn the portal this week as well, which now means that's going to have an effect on commercial operators as well, who do need to operate. Because
Ian, just a quick question. Shouldn't happen, or is everybody grounded? Because here the notification we got from our local authority is all flight permits are cancelled, period.
The wording the CAA have used is there should be no recreational flight, but I don't think they can out and out ban it. You know, you don't require a permanent permit to fly, therefore they've got no permit to withdraw. What they're saying is, I suppose the only way they could do you on this is if something did go wrong and they do you under that endangering other people under the ANO again. And it always 241 that falls under James. Everything comes back to if the flight was safe to happen in the first place, and they will always circle back round to that. You know, that is the CAA's catch-all. Whatever you do they don't like, they can get you under that law.
That's the only rule they need then. What don't need all this other
technically, yeah. You know,
it's like in Canada when you got sub 250, you can do whatever you like as long as you don't endanger personal property, and that covers everything. There's no loopholes in that. And I'm surprised that other regulators have got so detailed and so prescriptive with their regulation when they don't need to. But in that situation, you're talking about the guy flying his plane in the middle of a paddock. When I first watched that video, I thought, well, he's not doing anything wrong. What's the big problem? But then I realized that half the population has a below average IQ, and if they see someone doing what they want to do in the middle of a field, they'll think, I can do that too. And before you know it, the field's full of people doing what they want to do because they all feel entitled. Yeah.
So, and that is the problem we've got now. You know, I could go out and fly 100% safely away from people, but the problem is by me doing that leads other people to think they can do it, and then you end up with what we've seen in London this weekend. You know, London's had problems. So it is, you know, fundamentally the guy was an arse, is the term I'll use, the way he behaved, and he shouldn't have been doing what he was doing, but he wasn't really putting anyone at risk. But no, you know, now we've got this change, so the portal's gone, so you can't request flight into FRZs now automatically via the portal for the airports that were. My concern with this is how quickly this will be re-implemented on the flip side of this, because this was a great help for commercial operators who did want to have access to that 4.7 kilometer area. You know, just because you're flying within an FRZ doesn't mean you're flying close to the airport. You have to remember this is a large circle at 4.7 kilometers that goes around it. You might only need to step 20 foot into that to be able to do the job you need to do, yet you needed permission. And now that we've lost access to this portal, I think it's going to mean commercial operators might find things actually go back 12 months or more on the way it's been. And I don't really buy the argument they've had to take it down for manning reasons. It doesn't make any sense. It's a website portal. Surely that's less work.
From your article though, Gary, what I'm not sure about is it said in the article that they were under an evaluation stage, and that the evaluation stage has come to an end now, and they've decided not to continue with it. So is that because they now have to pay for it after the evaluation stage, or is there a link? I know Nats were under a bit of spot of bother regarding, I think they came under investigation from Competition Watchdog or something like that, because of they didn't comply with reductions in costs from the government or some. I don't know the full details. I'm not an expert in this, but there was something going on with that. So I know they were cutting back on non-essential work. And so from their perspective, is that linked, you know, is it linked into that?
Well, I found that whole press release, which was very nicely sent initially just to us, was nice of them. I found the whole thing a bit weird. It said a lot and said nothing at all at the same time.
I think they've taken this as an opportunity. Personally, I think they've taken it as an opportunity to close the door. And as James says, whether it be cost, whether it be a renewal coming up, a license, you know, as you say, a contract. I didn't realize that was on demo or whatever we call it, you know, trial. I thought that was in place permanently, you know.
And the best way to get something not noticed and published but not noticed is to send it to us. That's the best way to do it. It's very clever on their part, I think.
Let's be realistic. Like, you know, NATS controlled airspace is probably less than 1% of UK airspace. So really, you know, when it comes to unmanned traffic management and what that's going to look like in the future, really, that's a very, very, very small part of what UTM is all about. UTM is about flying of drones anywhere and deconfliction of manned and unmanned aircraft. And so, you know, that piece, if we do lose that, then, you know, I'm sure the drone community can come up with a solution to make this work. And you know, manned aviation, you can detect manned aviation in 2 years' time when everything has to be conspicuous. Obviously, within aerodromes, we have to be able to liaise with those aerodromes and the people who are controlling those aerodromes, but they're under an obligation of safety. So they have to be able to allow all aircraft the same rights to enter that airspace, and they're under an obligation of safety to allow that to happen. So I think the industry will come up with solutions to that, you know, there's lots of things going on at the moment within Future Flight. You know, there's a huge competition, UK competition, which is looking at exactly this area, which is very interesting. Lots of stuff going on in that. So I think it will all come together, and I think the drone community just need to sort of rally together and work together to go and come up with these solutions, because at the moment, competing against each other is not working. I think we need to work together and come up with solutions in a more collaborative manner to be able to.
What do you mean by competing? Who's competing?
So, you know, you look at, so within the UTM ecosystem, it's very much a land grab exercise. It's like everyone's trying to go and, you know, put their flag on the moon and say, this is my space. But that's not going to work. We need, you know, if we're going to go and build an industry here, then companies need to be able to work together and add to each other's work rather than competing against each other for the same piece of the pie, if that makes sense. So there should be.
But at the end of the day, that pie 20 years ago was completely free. But that pie up to 400 feet and above flight level 660 has suddenly accrued a value at the moment. And no one cared about it. And Bruce was flying back in the day, and he was just as dangerous then as he is now. So not a lot's changed. There aren't millions of drones flying in the sky. I'm going off topic a little bit, sorry, James, but I don't see what the fight's about. I don't see why this fight's even happening, or why people are trying to or being allowed. They're being allowed to fight for that bit of airspace, and they shouldn't be. It should be everybody's rights. That's that.
Yeah. So the key point is that you've got one airspace. Everyone needs to use that. And so where does the data sit for that airspace? You know, if everyone's going to be flying around and everyone wants to see that one set of data, how is that going to happen? Now, either you have, and I'm not going to start going into my sales pitch here, but you need to be able to have a collaborative environment where everyone can work together. Unless you can.
Just turn it down a bit. Look, Ian's asleep. Give him just.
No. I am listening. I'm listening.
I was just about to start singing "Kumbaya" at James.
No, I am listening. Don't you worry. Carry on. I'm just reading something at the same time. Some news. I'm trying to find something I saw. That's all.
Just resting his eyes.
Just rested. Yeah.
An actual drone story that we've got for this week. I'll try and find an actual drone.
An actual story. Yeah.
And so when I sort of say everyone's sort of competing, all right, the point is that who's going to hold that set of data? You know, is that going to be held by a single company, or is that going to be held across multiple companies? And that's the battle that's going on at the moment. And
yes.
You know, I think the industry needs to work together. That's my view. Is we need to work together. We need to keep things open, keep things fair for everyone, and then everyone can work together on their own piece of the puzzle to make that ecosystem work. And if everyone solves a different part of the problem, then in 2 years' time, when electronic conspicuity is mandated, we have a solution that can work. If we're all fighting over that, you know, ownership of airspace problem, then actually we're going to end up with, you know, Skynet owned by some draconian company who basically owns everyone's rights to fly. I don't think that's the way that people
agree with you. I can't stand agreeing with you, James. It doesn't seem right. Yeah, no, you're right. I agree. We are in a ridiculous situation. A ridiculous situation.
It's all coming together, Gary. It's all coming together. Just give it a bit of time, and I think 2 to 3 years' time, you're going to see the snowball start rolling. I think this is the regulatory change is the catalyst for the drone industry, is my belief. Without that, we're going to be hitting our head against a wall. But really, when it comes to innovation, regulation is one of the main blockers. If someone's saying you can't do it, then you can't innovate at the end of the day. So if the regulators turn around and say, well, you can do it if you do this, then people are going to do that and then innovate in that area. So that's going to be the catalyst. It's just a case of coming up with a solution that everyone can agree to. And that's
the people here that got the Iris on board approved out to 15 kilometers just kept pushing the door of the CAA and saying, well, what can we do to make it work? And then kept turning up with solutions and mitigations. And in the end, they did manage to push the door open in that case. And it was persistence and pushing with thoughts that got them there. And it's now pretty standard if you want to do it. To only 15 Ks. I mean, people might fly further than that. Who knows? But it's quite far,
Well, have you seen Zipline have recently said that they're going to start doing stuff in America? Apparently,
they have been ramping up to that for a while, and so I was never a believer in Zipline. I thought it was madness until I started actually looking at it and thought, oh yeah, it's actually bloody clever to own it end to end. And the parachute drops are pretty accurate, and it's very impressive stuff. It's very, very impressive stuff that they do, and at distance. But they started in Rwanda because Rwanda's like smaller than Wales, so you can a couple of bases, you've covered the entire country, and that looks really good in your PR to say we can cover the entire country. But so I think it's only 80 miles across, so it doesn't take much to do that. But the stuff they're doing in Ghana now is pretty amazing.
But doesn't that say something? What was the first worldwide BVLOS drone delivery use case? Was delivery of blood.
Yeah.
Medical
It
delivery.
was Nicola. He sent a plane to a mountain.
Delivering them to mountain.
Search and rescue.
Yeah, of his own gear. Yes. But yeah, above and beyond says we must remain vigilant to these overbearing regulations. I can't help thinking they've got to get out of the way. And I think yes, you're right with the delivery cases, but the medical delivery cases. But I think now is the time to say, hey, hang on, regulators, why the hell are we dealing with this 1950s sky in a digital world when you should be able to switch off commercial aviation and make it only emergency aviation? Prison contraband, well, that is the number one use drone race. So that is the number one.
Do you think we're going to see a change, though? A change in perspective by regulators to become facilitators rather than hindrance to development? Because I'm starting to see a little bit of it here. And one of the things that I've always believed is that you cannot have somebody who is 25 years old, sitting behind a desk, working from book learning, telling someone else who's been doing this for half a century the best practice and the best way to do things, and what you should do on the spot, because the only person who is actually in a position to make an informed, accurate decision based on all the factors is the person who's standing there behind the transmitter at the time, or who is on the spot and is fully au fait. If you make rules that are designed to cover every possibility, you becomes overburdening, and it's impossible to do anything other than virtually nothing. But if you allow the latitude and you allow the responsibility to be taken on by the person on the spot, then things can still be just as safe, but you've got far more flexibility to innovate and develop. A good example was this week, I got a call from CAA, the local friendly CAA people, because I put some videos up, and in New Zealand here, CAA have said you can't fly a drone except over your own property. And even then, you've got to be aware of your neighbours' privacy. And so you can't fly over parks, you can't fly over reserves or anywhere else, only over your own property. And of course, I got my drone out, flew over the park, flew over the road, and I put video up, and someone somewhere in the country saw the video and complained, oh, this is a breach of the regulations. So I got a lovely call from CAA, from a young girl there who's fairly new on the job, and we discussed things. And the bottom line was that, I wasn't endangering anybody. And one of their concerns was that if you fly outside your own property and the drone crashes, then you may have to invade someone's bubble. You may have to go next door to get your plane from the neighbor. So that's why I wasn't flying over any. But everywhere I fly, I have direct access to. The park is just over my back fence. The road is right in front of my house. And I wasn't flying more than 50 meters away from myself on the road or in the park, really. So, and if it fell into the lake, well, no one's at risk except a few fish. So I being the person on the spot, I was able to evaluate all the risk factors and mitigate them in a way that guaranteed absolute safety. And I think CAA were cognizant of that, because they basically said, we don't have too much problem with what you're doing, but we don't want people trying to copy you who are not in the same position as you. And I acknowledge that fact. That's fair and reasonable. So, but it is if that's the attitude they're going to start taking, that's a brilliant attitude to have, because it does put the responsibility where it lies, which is on the operator. But at the moment, the regulators are trying to take the responsibility themselves by being so prescriptive that people just are in a straitjacket, and we're not going to see any movement in advancing the technology or the operating principles until we give people the power to become responsible for their own actions.
I think you're right, Bruce, and I think really regulations are there for idiots, and I don't mean to say that in a derogatory way towards people, but in general, my experience and some of the stories I've heard is if people have broken the rules but they have flown safely, it's not in the CAA's interests to prosecute in those scenarios. So they talk to you and they say, okay, it seems like you're operating safely. We're kind of happy with that. Maybe do it properly next time. That's kind of their approach to things. But what they do need is, when people do break the rules and do something stupid and actually endanger someone's lives, they need to have a stick to be able to hit them with. And so I think in general, it's kind of in a similar way, I guess, to narcotics. Is they sometimes the laws and the way that they prosecute aren't aligned with each other. They tend to overemphasize the laws and then under prosecute so that they can catch those people that they need to.
Yeah, every time the CAA called me, yeah.
Come on, Bruce. But you're a human. Imagine that your AI engine running on blockchain was operating that drone. So that's
mine
not
runs on banana cake.
Yeah.
Yes, this is different get the ball games, isn't it? So what's happening with footballs in New Zealand then? Children kicking footballs over the fence. Was that endanger neighbours?
You're not allowed to do that. It's like when you go for a walk, you can't kick a ball around the field or anything. All you can do is actually walk. And the thing that annoys me a little bit is that we're not being very pragmatic, because they're saying, oh, people have to have exercise. They can't be cooped up for 4 weeks. So I let them walk around the parks and bang into each other and cycle and do all these things, because health is essential. But I can tell you now, the biggest health problems are going to be mental health, not physical. No one dies from a lack of exercise for 4 weeks, but if you coop someone up in a house and you don't give them the opportunity to unwind through their hobbies or their pastimes, or the things they use to relax, and believe me, FPV is a great mental health thing. If you don't give them that opportunity, you end up with much bigger problems than if you don't let them walk around a park. So I think
I'm on season 4 of Game of Thrones, so come on, I'm trying to keep myself healthy.
Yeah, it's. I think that is going to be a problem. Even my 4-year-old today, he said, Dad, will this lockdown ever? And he made himself cry, and we haven't been talking about it. We said, will this lockdown ever go away? Because he's missing his friends. So it is the mental health thing is going
to be. You need to get him better telescopic sights.
Yeah. Every time. You're absolutely right. I do. So yeah, no, it's gonna be big issues, isn't it? With all that sort of thing. But it has to be done. And it's quite a simple cure, isn't it? Well, not cure, but quite a simple way to avoid it. It's just not to see anyone.
Well, the Philippines have invented a cure for the virus. It comes in 38 and 45 caliber.
Yeah. So have we actually seen any drone stories we're going to talk about? So now we've truly berated James. Truly berated James.
I've seen a little bit of hardware stuff this week. There's a little bit. I spoke about one or two. Can I share my screen 1 second? I'll share one thing I've just seen. This is today.
About the Argipilot. After that, we'll hear about the Argipilot conference.
Yeah.
After you, Ian.
Let me just trying to find the button. I've lost the button. Where is it? Sorry, I've lost the screen.
It should be down the middle. Down the middle, isn't it? In the center, down the middle.
Visual window, Chrome tab. Just look at this. You can do individual tabs.
Oh, here we go. He's going to follow you 20 minutes while he works out now.
No, I'm going to see if
Tell us
this
about
works.
your chair, Ian. Tell us about your chair.
Can you see this?
About the chair.
Yeah.
Yes.
Can you see this?
What sort of chair does that sit on?
This
Yeah.
this is a version of Healing. Now, it isn't an official Healing product by Proficiency or Hex. It's a company, a core. They've made it to go with one of their drones, and it's a custom version which they're shipping the Healing mod unit, and they're then putting it in a frame with a tablet, and really more than anything, from what I can gather, it's actually just a frame and a tablet in a box. I don't think there's much else going on other than that. Deeper than that in there. They're still using the standard antennas. There doesn't look to be any wired integration. So really,
Has it got armrests on that thing?
it has. It's got something to come up on the sides, isn't it? I think that's for straps that flip up on the side.
About Wales.
I'm looking at where the sticks are. They're right up the top there. You'd be having your whole forearm on that.
Yeah,
Basically, wouldn't
it's a modified version of Hearlink, and I just thought it was quite interesting. Now they're obviously using the wireless link that goes from the Hearlink to the tablet. Really, more than anything, it's just a box, really, that holds the Hearlink and a smart device.
That's the Hearlink
in the middle, yeah, in that
huge box.
So what they've done is they've got custom sticks, just machined their own sticks. They've then got a tablet in the top, but they're still using the same antennas. I don't think there's been very much customization of it, but they've been doing something. But I looked at it and thought it looks really, really tidy, actually. It really does. Now, there are probably some cool things to come around this. Like, that's the Hearlink there. I've got it next to me because I've been testing the new software, which will go out, I think, any day.
It must be huge then, if that's the scale.
Yeah. So that's the Hearlink. So it
must be enormous.
It is bigger. Now, the one big thing people want on this is the throttle mod. I'm going to do that this week. I am going to share it this week. The throttle mod.
Now, if you break the Hearlink this week, tune in. Nate's channel at Chris Corder's Day to see exactly how.
Don't touch the USB port. Whatever.
How I managed to screw it up. But no. But what will be interesting is Philip has hinted at a just receiver module coming at some point. And if that happens, that's going to allow you to do you build your own custom ground station without the RC element yourself. It's basically that, Louis. That's basically all they've done is that, by the look of it. But
Louis appears to have a TV strapped to his controller.
Is that an iPad Pro?
No.
Is it Android? Oh, it's Android.
Yeah, it's the Samsung. And
I thought you had taste.
Fanboy alert.
Just like devices that work.
Sorry, I'm speaking on a MacBook Pro, so
yeah. You can't give me too much crap. But no, it's interesting. And I have seen another flight controller that was announced this week by a company. And the interesting thing about that flight controller is that they say it was US certified, and that was the interesting bit about it. It is PX4. It's using a F7 STM32 F7, so it's going to be the 1 meg version. But it was US certified. Now that's the interesting bit about it.
Those are the ones from MRO. Mayan Robotics from Jordi Munoz.
This was Someone AI. I should know. I spoke about him on the channel on the thing. Modal AI. It's a Modal AI VOXL.
Oh, and with that,
it's gone.
That's what happens when you violate the NDA. They just cut you off.
He must have violated the NDA. That's exactly what he must have done. Yeah, no, I did see that US certified thing, and I'm never quite sure about that. I'm never quite sure what that actually means, because as far as I know, not a single autopilot, even the military ones, have been through the full
certifications. Yeah, that's the question. No, and on the autopilot plans, we had our virtual unconference 2020 I've posted the link to the playlist of the talks. So the talks are all online now. And there are, for those techies, there are a few that are wonderful, namely the ones from Leonard and from Paul Risenborough. And there's also the one about Lua scripting. So what has been developed lately, which is the possibility of running Lua scripts inside the flight controller. There's one talk about that, and there's a small, very small talk of Buzz doing a demo of automatically generated missions inside the flight controller at the flick of a switch. That is absolutely fantastic and just lifts the cloth a bit about what can be done natively on ArduPilot using the Lua scripting capabilities. And there's also a very good talk that goes deep on the concepts of helicopters done by the Bill Geyer, which is the helicopter maintainer that I would urge you to see because it's very good. And yeah, and then there's the new thing that we are quite engaged on the development, which is the integration of the Intel visual odometry cameras, the T265 namely, with ArduPilot natively. And we even have one of the Intel people having a conversation, and it's the talk that is done by Rob Mahoney from the ANU, Australian National University, and we have Intel also pitching in at the end and being bombarded with a lot of questions. So it's quite, this year the talks were very, very nice.
Where's the link to these, Louis? Where is the link?
I put the link on YouTube. I don't know if you can see that.
Let's have a look.
Lost it. Put it on, and then it'll be in the right place in the comments. Put it on again, Louis, if you can, and then it'll appear in the right place in the comments. Yeah, I know it's sad that it had to turn into a virtual meeting in these modern times.
I think it was very good.
Yeah. That's just what I was going to say. Sad. It's kind of sad it happened, but I think the net result was perhaps even better.
And we managed, as we were speaking of ground controller stations and flight controllers, then Ian, I will urge you to see what is being done for plain old radios that's running OpenTX, which is two-way telemetry done by our good friend Alexandro Apostoli, also known as Yapu. That is very, very, very interesting, and he has been doing a great job.
UAV Shed's asking in the comments, what's a good tablet that works well in daylight? Anyone got any answers on that?
None.
No. The ones from DJI?
Yeah, Crystal Sky, but they're limited.
Yeah.
They don't.
Yeah.
They're Android 5 now. Someone announced.
I'm using this one. It's a Samsung S6. And with the brightness cranked all the way up, it's quite usable in daylight.
Yeah. Why do they all have shiny screens? Why can't they have a nice matte screen like LCDs for visual display LCDs do? Why do they have to have that? So you wear a white shirt, you go out in the sun, and all you can see are your buttons.
Come on, Bruce. We have to go with what sells, and if it's not shiny, it won't sell. See?
It'll attract magpies.
Shiny.
Have you reposted this link? Where is it? Come on, I can't see it. Is it there?
Come on, go to the ArduPilot channel. I can put the link here. I put it on YouTube.
ArduPilot. You want me to go to the ArduPilot? I'll find it now.
You find it. That's your job. You've got one job. That's your one job.
It's the latest playlist. Come on, I even had the trouble to do a playlist with the videos in the order of the talks. Come on, Ian, give me a break.
Which one do you talk on, Bruce? Which one are you talking on?
I'm not talking on anyone, fortunately.
Videos playlist. Right, I will share the playlist.
Is that the link you put up in the Steam
YouTube
thing on YouTube?
No,
there's so much stuff on YouTube you can't find anything.
Yeah,
There we go.
That'll be easy then.
Oh, come on, guys. Give me a break.
I thought Ian's on the case.
Put it up on the Streamlabs
done.
thing. Then it's easy.
It's there. I've put it in the chat. It's already in the chat for people.
It's interesting. It doesn't show up here. It's not showing up for
Not
me.
showing
Didn't it?
There it is.
That chat, the private chat. Oh,
I put it in both.
Yeah.
And the other one as well.
It's on YouTube.
No, on the other one does not show.
That's interesting.
Yeah, I think we cannot put
You
links
can't
on
put
that.
links on the YouTube because it considers them to be spam.
Did it
And it knows it's Ian.
That's interesting. If you can't put YouTube links, I'll just see if I can share the channel name.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A.
Oh, I got A. It should be after A. No, nothing. That's strange, isn't it?
Yeah.
Is. Where's the RG Pilot YouTube channel, dear viewer?
Yeah, it's just because people post spammy links in all the chats, so they just don't let any links go through.
Ah, cool. So, which one is the one about the cameras?
The visual odometry.
Visual odometry. Cool. I got a busy day tomorrow, haven't I?
And you have the one from Randy McKay that is more specific. But start on the visual odometry one, and you'll see the integration of the software simulation CITL with AirSim, and that will blow your mind, Ian.
Nice. There's a lot to see there. 19 videos in total. Very good indeed. Looking forward to it.
There's always thumpingly clever people that just leave me behind after the first couple of lines, but I sit there nodding. That's my main task when watching these videos. Just sit there nodding and tutting and umming a lot, not really understanding a thing I'm watching.
Don't forget to stroke your beard. You've got to stroke your beard.
Yeah,
as well.
yes. Yeah, no, it's some fantastic stuff there.
And we even had one of the partners presenting a new flight controller that Andrew Tridgell just tested with the new IMUs, the ADIs, and the results from that new IMU are fantastic. Tridge posted the results of the test today or yesterday, depending on your time zone, on the Autopilot forum. And the results are fantastic.
Even better than Pendulum Elevator.
Yes.
Anyone remember Pendulum Elevators?
Hang on a minute. Hang on. Let's take this off here. I have a book here that will tell me exactly how to make a pendulum elevator. Let me.
This is new stuff. James has never heard of this.
There we go. Here's a pendulum stuff. Yeah. And then, well, what about slope soaring gliders?
Magnetic steering.
Oh,
yeah, they were great, eh? Fantastic.
They were great. I don't know. These kids today, they don't know they're born, do they? Yeah, they were great. If you don't know what we're talking about there, do you look for pendulum and look for those? It was called magnetic steering, wasn't it? And you used to set the heading you wanted. I can't remember what you used to do. Set where the wind was, and it would keep the rudder trying to bounce it into wind. So it would sort of free flight slope soar. Yeah, happy days. And on that note, we've still got sound. I've still got sound.
Yeah. Sorry, I was reading on the forum. I was trying to find what who posted that. Louis Tridge posted it. Tridge. Is it under a blog post about that flight controller?
No, it's only on the sensor. But the flight controller you can see on the presentations.
Okay.
You can see the presentation there.
Cool.
Gosh, there's still a thing. I was just searching for magnetic rudders, and there's still a thing in the world. That's amazing. All right, on that, I think. Does anyone else have anything else going on?
No.
I think we should a moment of silence for all the airline pilots that have been losing their jobs recently. 400 of them lost their jobs in New Zealand here at Air New Zealand. So
wow.
and I have
Actually
suggested
lost
to
their
them.
jobs.
Yeah, they've been laid off as a result of the thing. And I've suggested to them that they buy a drone, learn to fly it, and start a new career, but stay away from airports.
And fly safe inside your home.
Yes, I never did get one of those. I should have done. Dear viewer, wherever you are in the world, thank you very much. Be safe. However this thing is affecting you in your part of the world, stay away from other people, just like we all do. That's why we're here tonight, because we haven't got any friends.
Can you get these windows further apart? I don't see 2 meters over here.
Yeah, especially from James living on the streets. He could have any sort of bloody disease.
Yeah.
I'm being kind. I'm protecting you all with my mask, so it's fine.
Be safe.
Plus, I think I've already had it anyway. So actually, I've got like superpowers now. I can go out there and do whatever I want.
You know, he does only just break into someone's property to do this every week when he comes on. Steal their Wi-Fi.
Hence the mask, yeah.
Yeah, he doesn't really have it. You know, he's usually back out in a lay-by somewhere or a doorway, pushing his bike along the road.
Hey, Ian, watch yourself. I'm not the one who's sat in a shed right now.
With a list of DIY jobs to do as well. That's why he's hiding in this shed. Right, I'm going to try again. Dear viewer, wherever you are in the world, stay safe, be safe. See you at 2100 GMT next week. Look after yourselves, everyone. Thanks very much, chaps. See you next week. Cheers. Now it's time to press 2 buttons. 1 button there. Cheerio, 1 button there.